Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, the 6 most common and legitimate ways your moving costs can increase. And I focus on legitimate because I'm sure you're aware of, and as sort of the industry problem is that there are a lot of low quality, sort of scammy moving companies out there. You know, if you're struggling to find a good moving company right now, I would definitely recommend link below to our moving cost calculator. I can sort of get you started on finding a good mover, but that's not really the topic for today. The topic today is you've already found a moving company that you feel good about, that you trust, but that doesn't mean that your costs are guaranteed. You know, this is still a estimate-based industry for a reason. There are scenarios where your costs can increase, and that's just the nature of moving. You know, there's not really a way around it. I think it's super important to understand when it's a legit scenario and the company really is just legitimately supposed to charge you more money and it's very common, or when it's sort of a scam or there's someone trying to take advantage of you. And there's a little bit of gray area there as well, but I would say it's really important ahead of time to understand the differences. And yeah, just if this is the first time on your channel, my name's Ryan Kerrigan. I'm the founder of Move Buddha. We help over 400,000 people move every year. So I like to think I know a little bit about moving. And today, you know, we're gonna cover this topic pretty thoroughly and yeah, super important. So let's get to it. So reason number 1 that your moving costs could increase: customer is not ready to move. And this is super common. Movers show up, boxes aren't packed, sheets are still on the bed. Anything that the customer agreed to do beforehand, you know, might not be fully done. Like for instance, taking apart really complicated furniture. That happens all the time, and extra time equals extra money, especially in a local move where you're being priced on a per hour basis. You are gonna see a higher cost if you're not ready, and it slows down the movers. You know, it also could result in the movers having to pack things themselves, and they'll charge you for the time and the materials. So this could be a very expensive mistake if you're not ready to go. I know that won't be you, but chances are if you've lived in your house for 7 years, or your apartment, you know, there's some closets you haven't seen the bottom of in a very long time, drawers that are full of junk. My recommendation would be, number 1, just get started early. So pull everything out of those drawers, empty the closets, just take everything out just to see it, donate, trash, sell. Anything that falls into those 3 categories, just go ahead and do that now. And so then on moving day or a couple days before moving day, when you're starting to pack your boxes, it just makes things a lot faster and easier. You're not having to make all those decisions, do 50 Goodwill trips, you know, all of that is sort of figured out. So you know, if you can handle it ahead of time, that's great. Another thing to consider if you have the budget is just simply have the movers pack for you. You still do need to do some prep because you don't want them packing trash or, you know, everything, but that will obviously make moving day a lot faster and easier, and you can avoid a lot of the prep work. Again, if you have the budget for it and you're sort of time constrained, there's a couple other benefits to having movers pack for you as well that we'll talk about in the next point, but overall, just be prepared. Reason number 2, items are not packed and prepped properly. And I'm talking specifically about things like flat screen TVs, antiques, art. You know, if you're wrapping your flat screen TV in a sheet and expecting the movers to load that on the truck and take responsibility for it, they're probably not gonna be okay with that. The mover definitely doesn't want any sort of damage. And so, you know, the way that this leads to higher costs is one of 2 ways. If you're scrambling to pack these things that you're probably not familiar with packing, you may not have the materials. Anyway, it's gonna slow the move down. That's gonna translate into more costs. Also, if you don't have the right materials or you just simply can't pack it and you opt for the movers to pack it on move day, it's gonna probably be a little bit more expensive than if you had done it yourself. And the extra time added to the estimate as well will increase your costs. So definitely things to be aware of. What I would say is communication is key here. Every moving company has different requirements when it comes to fragile or breakable items. And so you just wanna talk to the mover and understand, if you're gonna pack it yourself and take on that responsibility, what are they gonna require? How involved is the packing? If it's a local move around the block, you might be able to get away with just a blanket around a flat screen TV and they'll wrap it again in a pad or something. And that could be enough. But if it's a long distance move, there's just a lot more opportunity for damage, especially if you're going 500, 1,000 miles. Things are going to jostle around in the truck. So you really need to understand what the mover is requiring in terms of packing and prep that ahead of time. So that would be advice point number one. The other thing that you could opt to do is have the mover pack all your fragile and sort of bulky items like flat screens and stuff ahead of time for you or on move day for you. Most movers will offer that service. The other benefit of that is that it typically comes with higher liability coverage as well. So if the mover is packing and prepping it themselves, they're willing to also cover it at a higher level. So definitely good conversations to have with your moving company to avoid this one. Reason number 3, an increase in the move inventory. And this is super common, happens all the time. You forget to show the mover your basement. Turns out there's a lot of stuff down there and that wasn't on the original estimate. Everything from you thought you were going to donate some items and you decided not to. The number one way is just an underestimation of the number of boxes. And that's super common. It's very hard to estimate how much loose stuff you have and how good you are at purging a lot of that versus hoarding it. On a local move, it's not disastrous to have an increase in the inventory, assuming that everything can fit on the truck. You might have an extra hour or two in costs. It shouldn't inflate your costs too much. Now, if you overload the truck and they have to do 2 trips for a local move, that can be pretty significant in terms of cost. But more importantly, I think where this can really balloon costs is on a long distance move. Because on a long distance move, you're being charged on the weight or volume of your goods. And so every added item, whether it's 10 boxes or a couch or whatever it may be, can be thousands depending on the distance and the rate that you're paying per pound or per cube. So it's really important to just keep, as you pack, as things change, as you decide to donate or sell items or not, you really should let your mover know ahead of time. It's super helpful for them. They need to allocate a certain amount of space on the truck for you, and you could get a better sense of what the cost will be. It's also much easier to negotiate beforehand versus on move day when everything's sort of set in motion. So definitely important to just stay in touch with the mover as your move inventory sort of evolves and develops. That's a great way to avoid an increase in a bill. All right, reason number 4. Adding extra stops to the move. This can be an extra stop on the pickup day or maybe an extra stop on delivery. I think the more common scenario is when the movers deliver your goods, maybe some of it's going into your house and some of it's going into nearby storage. Generally, movers are gonna, depends on the type of move you're doing. For a local move, you probably just pay for the extra time that it takes to go and deliver items to a secondary location or pick them up at a secondary location. For a long distance move, however, depending on which side of the move you're doing the extra stop, if it's, your sister gives you a couch last minute or something on move day, they're gonna charge you to go get it from your sister's house around the corner, and that'll be an additional charge. And then you also have to pay for the extra weight or cubic footage being added to the shipment overall. Is an increase in moving inventory. So that can be quite expensive. For a long distance move, if it's just an extra stop at delivery, there's typically a one-time fee for that, assuming that it's within 20, 30 miles. So definitely something that you just want to be aware of if you feel like you're going to have extra stops. You just get a quote ahead of time on what it will cost. Definitely let the mover know. All right, reason number 5 is unexpected storage costs. And this is not really something that you can plan for, but good example of this is, a closing gets delayed and but you need to be out of your original house. And so there's sort of this gap. That definitely happens from time to time, and the movers will just need to store the items. It can be very costly to have that service done. So, what I would definitely recommend is talking to the mover ahead of time about what it would cost if storage comes into play play. Whether it's locally or long distance, you definitely want to make sure they offer some sort of storage solution or have some way of dealing with that, and get a quote ahead of time on what it would cost. This one can definitely be very expensive though. If you're moving locally, it's basically a delivery into storage and then a whole nother move out of storage. The move out of storage should be less expensive because it's a little easier than moving out of a house. It should go faster because everything's sort of neatly organized to put back in the truck, but it still can be a hefty additional expense. So certainly something to be aware of, and the answer is just get an idea on what that would cost from the mover prior to. Even if you don't think it'll come up, you still just get that service quoted so that just in case it arises. All right, so last but not least, the infamous shuttle fee. And I say that because this has generated a lot of malcontent over the years amongst customers and movers. It's definitely a hefty fee. This only applies to long distance moves. So if you're moving locally within 50 or so miles, thanks for watching. Go check out some of our other videos. Check out our website in the comments below. But if you're moving long distance, this is a really important potential fee to be aware of. And a shuttle mostly applies to, when the fee comes into play is at delivery, right? So the moving company shows up to deliver the items and they can't get the big 18-wheeler truck into the delivery location. There's low-hanging power lines, there's a really tight turn, there's HOA issues, whatever it may be, unexpectedly, the mover has to use a smaller truck. And in that scenario, they're going to have to unload everything off the 18-wheeler, load it into the smaller truck, and then unload it again into your house. It's effectively an entire extra move, which is why it's typically such a large additional fee if you do need a shuttle. And so, there's really no way to avoid it. I would say the number one thing to do is to get a quote ahead of time on what it could cost. And that's definitely good to know, just so it's not a total surprise. I'd also say it's a really good idea, if you know where you're moving to, your address, when you book, to definitely have the mover check it out on Google Maps and see if they see, any potential issues or need for a shuttle. In that case, they might be able to coordinate things, or it just make things easier, because there could be delays with a shuttle. You're still probably gonna have to pay for it. Not every mover charges for a shuttle either. There are some companies that have built systems around it. I will say generally they tend to be just more expensive, so everyone sort of pays for the shuttle because overall those companies tend to just charge more. So it's a little bit mover dependent, but it's certainly something that if it were me, one, I'd have the company looking at where they're delivering to on Google Maps and just checking it out. And then two, I'd want to know exactly what the fee is going to be ahead of time so that I'm not caught by surprise, or so that there's not some sort of driveway pricing going on that fee. So that's it. Hopefully you found this video helpful and to help you save some money on your move. Definitely check out our website, the rest of our videos and our channel. There's a ton of helpful stuff. And yeah, have a great move.